The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Wold. Of course, I'm always joined by Greg Buchanan, the co-host of CPCA Radio. How are you?
Not too bad, Moses, not too bad.
Excellent. And we are pleased to be joined by this guest this week, Kurt Price, the co-host of the morning show on Lloyd FM.
Hey, thanks for having me. I think this is my third time on here, so I'm aiming for that 25 mark.
Well, you know, you get a nice little gift after a certain amount of times you've been on the episode.
So I think 5 I should probably get my own mug on the show.
Or your microwave, like definition.
You do realize on a new cab budget we can't afford a microwave. We can't afford a microwave, but we'll get you a nice little parting gift soon enough.
Way out of his time.
Well, you know
Give
what?
a letter away.
All right, you know what? At least this is during my time, and that's been the NHL lockout, especially with Gary Bettman.
Yeah.
Third lockout under his tenure. This one, well, we'll see what happens in terms of the length of it. But it kind of looks like you have Donald Fair, who's worked with Major League Baseball, who was a part of the '94 strike. You just kind of have to ask yourself, what's next for both parties? Will they come to a resolution soon, or is this going to be prolonged?
I don't think this is going to go the full season because I just don't think that they can afford to give up the big New Year's Day in Detroit. Yep. So what the NHL needs to have happen, I think, is for sponsors to start stepping up and saying, like, if this doesn't get resolved soon, it's bad for publicity. It's bad for me to be involved with it because you know what? Fans are mad. And they are more angry this time than I've ever seen fans before. And I keep saying the NHL has to be careful because it's not like they have the world's best product nowadays. There's better hockey out there. They have a stupid instigator rule. They have a chase the puck down the ice, hit the guy from behind rule. They have a team like Tampa Bay and Philly when they play where one team refuses to attack. They got to be real careful because there's a lot of fans that are already kind of edgy on what this game and where the NHL has taken this game to. So don't anger the fans anymore. And when you anger the fans, that's when sponsorship comes into it.
They've made a lot of money with Gary Bettman, but the issue is too much of a hardliner, and I think that's really frustrated fans. And there's a reason why they don't like him.
Well, there's options for your entertainment dollar, like options for hockey, options for your fans to spend those dollars elsewhere, options for your sponsors to spend that money elsewhere too. So if it's a long extended lockout, it's going to cripple the league. And you look at the southern markets where they're trying to get that game off the ground. Phoenix had a great run in the playoffs. All of a sudden now they don't have hockey. How's that going to affect them when they finally do get back? And when they do get back, will those fans return? Dallas is on a shoestring of getting that shoestring cut in Dallas and having nothing after this because it's fragile right now, especially even in Florida. So those are the markets that the NHL has to be concerned about, and they have to get this over in a hurry.
And
they can lose those fans quickly. That's a given.
Hey, when I hear about players going to Europe and playing for free, that's when I start to get angry because I'm like, well, it's costing people $300 to $500 for front row seats at a hockey game here, and then you're saying, well, the money doesn't matter to me here. I've got my $5 million check from last year, so I can go over to the KHL and play wherever I want to play, and as long as they play my insurance, I'm going to be fine, and you play for them. That angers me. It makes me look like a sap.
Well, and it angers me too. It angers the fans, but it angers me for the players that they take jobs away from over there. They're taking jobs away from probably Canadians, American players that are over there in Europe, and they're playing it because they need the money. They want to support their families. These guys are going over there to play to stay in shape. The Derzinski boys from Lloyd here, likely it's going to be a trickle-down effect. Guys going to the American Hockey League, Derzinskis are trying to make it in the American Hockey League. They're going to lose possibly their spots and have to go down to the East Coast or Central League. Then the guys in the East Coast and Central, they lose spots. So it's a trickle-down effect. All these players are going to lose jobs because NHL players want to get in shape.
I heard a great analogy is if the automobile, if the automobile market goes south, do people from Detroit automatically move to Europe and take jobs over there? It doesn't happen. That's a great analogy.
But you know what?
Exactly.
You know what? They should probably learn a thing or two about the automotive union because they actually got a deal done last minute. So maybe they could take lessons from them.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah.
All right. Well, move on. Of course, locally, there's Hockey Day in Canada. Another thing that'll be affected. Never mind the Winter Classic. Too early to kind of be worrying and pressing that panic button, right, guys?
Absolutely. I don't think you cancel Hockey Day in Canada because there's no NHL. I mean, this is Hockey Day in Canada. It's not NHL Day in Canada. It's Hockey Day in Canada.
But the only thing is, it does come down to the major sponsor. Scotiabank is a major sponsor. They're going to make that decision. Now, if there's no hockey, lightly, who's going to be sitting in front of their TV across the country watching CBC that day to find out stories about the game of hockey across Canada and featuring Lloydminster? And that's the concern that Scotiabank will have. That will be the concern that CBC has.
Whether we like it or not, the NHL has a tie-in to this whole thing. You are absolutely right, Kurt. It is Hockey Day in Canada, not the NHL. But yet, if you look at all the guys who've come through here, the stories they'll have, all NHL players are players who've gone to the NHL. So I think that's a little bit of concern. People will be like, well, we're not going to get that national coverage like we would before. That's a common concern. But my question for you is this. If this thing goes into, say, the lockouts in November, December, then do you start saying, hey, let's try to get something done or with the Hockey Day in Canada, or do you want to push this back to, say, 2014?
Oh no, you make a decision ASAP because there's a lot of volunteers waiting to see, am I going to go full bore on this? Am I going to get the strings cut, or what's going to happen? Because there's a lot of people in Lloydminster that are going to be affected by that, and a lot of work is being done already to make sure that Hockey Day in Canada is the best ever in Lloydminster. So one way or the other, you pull the pin or you go full bore. And in my opinion, you go full bore.
And I know that, I'm one of the ones organizing some of the events, and we are organizing already. We are organizing as the effect that this will happen. But at the same time, there is going to be some deadlines set in place where we have to make a decision, or Scotiabank or CBC is going to have to make a decision if this is a go or not. I know November 15th is about roughly the date where CBC is planning on being in Lloyd, making a tour around the facilities and setting up a game plan for Hockey Day in Canada. But before that, they'll have to make a decision whether or not there will be a Hockey Day in Canada. Now, Lloyd does have the right for refusal for this year, and then could have it next year if the lockout goes to extended period of time.
I like the small town stories and things like that. I remember one year putting in a closet in my basement and just having the TV just blaring. And listening to all the stories and stuff, I could care less about the outcome of the scores and things like that, especially after my team's done. So that's one game, out of the 3 games, there's the one game. And you even have an NHL team that plays that has to not even featured on Hockey Day in Canada, with there being too many of them now for even games. So
like for myself personally too, I even had stories run back in my broadcasting days, and it was a great. You get so many great stories about the whole country and how the game affects everybody, and it's nice to see that. But at the same time, it will come down to CBC and Scotiabank to decide whether or not there'll be hockey.
And they kind of want to actually kind of bring in the whole media here. They want everyone's eyes on Lloydminster.
Well,
so
Greg's broadcasting days, that's back when Definition was on.
There you go. All right, let's move on to the Lloydminster Bobcats. Starting the season 0-5. Not exactly the way you want to go. Is this, though, the right indication of where this team is at this point? 0-5.
It's only 2 games in at home, and I haven't even had a chance to go see the Bobcats yet, so I'm not going to make any judgment. I mean, last year they were 0-3 to start the season, so it might be a little bit too early to start. And also, talking to the coach and things like that, there's going to be a lot of changes to this hockey club yet as we go down the road. So,
Ryan's trying to put his stamp on that team. It's early yet, 0-5, and they have another couple of tough games coming up here, and hope that they can rebound. But at the same time, you're trying to put players into positions and into roles that maybe they're not used to right now. Hopefully down the road they will get used to it, and they'll make them a better player and better team down the road. But don't panic right now. If we're for a little longer, then start panicking.
Yeah, the grass is still green, right?
Yeah.
All the leaves haven't changed yet.
If there's about 4 inches of snow on the ground and we only have a couple of winds by then, then you start kind of wondering what's going to happen.
Greg will pull whatever's left of his hair right out.
All right, we'll leave on that note. Take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Gloves Are Off.